I'm a little concerned about what you've got here.
Who is this guy?
Photograph.
Who is this guy? Was that?
We're not going to be legalizing weed or what anytime soon. But what we are trying to do is make sure that when it comes to drugs, that we're not just thinking about law enforcement. We're also thinking about treating it as a public health problem.
1 in 6 people in prison are in there for weed that Jimmy Fallon and the President of the United States of America laugh about. Ha, ha, ha. And then does this addendum that maybe will help them with treatment. Treatment from the fucking government? You need treatment? You smoke dope? You're President of the United States. You did not need treatment. Let the people go.
Save the people, save their souls. Save my father, save my mother. Save the people, save their souls.
I do have one real question for you, Mr. President. What's with the marijuana crackdown? I mean, seriously, what is the concern? We will deplete the nation's Funyun supply? Let's take a quick poll. I would like everyone in this room to raise your hand if you've never smoked pot. There you go. Mr. President, you remember when the country rallied around you in hopes of a better tomorrow? That was hilarious. That was your best one yet.
Save the people, save the people, save the people, save us all.
On Thursday, May 23rd, 2013, 70 law enforcement officers from local, county, state, and federal law enforcement agencies assisted Medford Area Drug and Gang Enforcement, otherwise known as MADGE, in serving 8 marijuana search warrants. The Lane County Interagency Narcotics Enforcement Team also served 2 search warrants. Some of these various law enforcement agencies included the Jackson County District Attorney's Office, the Oregon State Police, the Oregon Department of Justice, the Jackson County Sheriff's Office, Jackson County Community Justice, Rogue Area Drug Enforcement from Josephine County, the Central Oregon Drug Enforcement Team, the Ashland Police Department, the Central Point Police Department, the Eagle Point Police Department, the Grants Pass Department of Public Safety, the Medford Police Department, the Phoenix Police Department, the Talent Police Department, the U.S. Department of Homeland Security, the Federal Bureau of Investigations, the Drug Enforcement Agency, and U.S. Marshals Service. The nonprofit office of Southern Oregon NORML was searched, including 4 businesses, Puffin Stuff in Medford, the Green Compass in Medford, the Compass in Gold Hill, and the Greener Side in Eugene. 3 homes were also searched in Medford, 1 home in Cave Junction and 1 in Eugene. 4 medical marijuana activists were arrested in Medford: Lori Duckworth, Lee Duckworth, Dave Bond, and Michael Shano. All of them were charged with multiple counts of conspiracy to deliver marijuana within 1,000 feet of a school. Also, 2 medical marijuana activists were arrested in Eugene: Chelsea Hopkins and Jill Tanner. Both were charged with marijuana delivery. To find out more about Chelsea's activism, go to Eugene Cannabis TV on YouTube and watch episode number 479. Was Lori Duckworth targeted for her activism? This question was asked by Jennifer Alexander, a writer for the Portland Cannabis Examiner. Jennifer herself has been an outspoken cannabis activist in the Portland area. She co-hosts a podcast discussing marijuana issues every Tuesday night at 8 p.m. Pacific Time called A Different View at www.radicalruss.com. You can contact Jennifer at mook2357@gmail.com with questions or story ideas. Lori Duckworth is a longtime medical marijuana proponent who is very outspoken in Southern Oregon. Lori is the executive director of Southern Oregon NORML, which shares space with the Southern Oregon Cannabis Compassion Center, which she also manages. The location is next door to the federal building in downtown Medford, which houses federal law enforcement. Lori has openly advocated the reforming of marijuana laws in Oregon and nationwide. Lori has coordinated raid support teams in the past to support local patients, growers, and advocates as they have been raided by police, and is usually among the first on the scene in order to share the information with advocates statewide and monitor police activity at the scene. She also made news in the last few years for her defense of medical marijuana patients who were denied concealed handgun permits because their names appeared in the confidential registry of medical marijuana participants. That case went all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court, which rejected hearing the case. Multiple courts along the way rejected the arguments presented by Sheriff Mike Winters of Jackson County and Sheriff Rob Gordon of Washington County, and repeatedly ruled in favor of issuing the weapons permits to the 4 cardholders represented in the litigation. The 2 sheriffs argued that the federal ban on illegal drug users possessing firearms trumped state laws on issuing the permits for possessing concealed weapons, and therefore they were correct to reject applications from those who possessed medical marijuana cards. Lori also had her own court case after her concealed weapons permit was initially rejected, but ultimately the sheriffs were ordered to issue the permits. Her lawsuit was approximately 2 years ago, roughly the same time the investigation began into the alleged unlawful sales from the Southern Oregon Cannabis Community Center. Evidence seized from the May 23, 2013 raid was only generally identified, but included weapons among items seized. Sources close to Lori Duckworth have stated that this likely refers to Lori's personal firearm. This circumventing of Lori Duckworth's voice by Sheriff Winters comes as a surprise, considering Sheriff Winters' stand on the issues of the federal government seizing firearms from American citizens.
Into place, but if the feds think they're going to take guns out of the hands of law-abiding citizens, if federal agencies think that's not the case in this particular county. What they need to do is go through the Congress and the Senate and the people that we've elected to serve back there and do what things they're going to do. But they can't just circumvent the voice of the people. And the sheriff is one of those voices. And just arbitrarily rule like a dictator.
They can't just circumvent the voice of the people. And the sheriff is one of those voices. Yet Sheriff Mike Winters assists federal law enforcement agencies in circumventing the voice of the people when he participates in medical marijuana raids. Sheriff Mike Winters is in bed with the feds. Did Lori Duckworth break the law? Attempts to assassinate Lori's character have been perpetrated by certain reporters within Medford and Eugene media. These certain media agents have made false accusations towards Lori pertaining to the selling of drugs and pot, while Medford Police Chief Tim George has falsely accused Lori of selling marijuana.
A developing story we're following. Medical marijuana advocates show up in court to support 4 people arrested by officers during a recent drug raid. But
some of our area's most outspoken medical marijuana advocates are facing drug-related charges.
More information expected this afternoon on last week's massive pot raid in our region.
The suspects in last week's drug raids in court this afternoon. Meanwhile, 2 of the 4 suspects entered not guilty pleas. Lori Duckworth and Dave Bond facing nearly 24 drug charges. Lori Duckworth and Dave Bond both facing nearly 24 drug charges. Not guilty. 2 of the 4 suspects arrested last week in a string of drug raids, refusing to say they did anything wrong.
You can't sell a controlled substance in this state. You can't sell marijuana. And that is the criminal charge, and that's what we're dealing with, and that's what we will be held accountable for.
The media will never admit to covering the truth, but they will always brag about covering the story. I would like to ask each of these certain reporters one question. What is your cover story? The truth is, Lori has been charged with 11 counts of conspiracy to deliver marijuana within 1,000 feet of a school. Each count could bring a 5 to 20 year sentence. Lori is currently 50 years old, meaning if convicted, she would spend the rest of her life in prison. Now, let us look at these false accusations from certain reporters within the Medford and Eugene media who have conspired with Medford Police Chief Tim George. First of all, drugs are not an issue in Lori's case. If you have a state-licensed pharmacy, drugs are legal. If you do not have a state-licensed pharmacy, drugs are illegal. Lori does not deal with drugs because she is not a licensed pharmacist. Second of all, Lori does not deal with pot. Currently, the state of Oregon does not issue pot licenses to anyone because pot is illegal. Good thing Lori obeys the law and maintains a current medicinal marijuana registration. Medford Police Chief Tim George has admitted that all of the informants used to arrest Lori had a marijuana license, so everyone involved had a legal right to possess medical marijuana. So where did Tim George find these informants?
Medical marijuana cardholder Cynthia Willis is shocked that the state allowed Oregon medical marijuana patient records to be released to the federal government.
But those are like our medical records. It's like they've gone into our doctor's offices and taken our records. It is the same thing. It's an absolute violation of privacy.
Each year she signs HIPAA forms at her doctor's office.
We're very outraged that this has happened.
So Normal Executive Director Lori Duckworth says cardholders also pay over $200 to be licensed with the state.
In that we expect and demand that our records, our medical records, according to the HIPAA law, be kept confidential.
According to court records recently uncovered by the Seattle Post-Intelligencer, the United States Drug Enforcement Administration executed a warrant and seized OMMP patient records for an investigation into illegal drug activities.
This is the first time I've heard, and I think that the cannabis community in Oregon has heard that the feds have actually accessed records from the OMMP.
However, a statement issued by the OMMP says the state routinely releases records pursuant to a court order.
On one sheet of paper, there is the patient's name, the caregiver's name, and the grower's name, which would reflect on some 3 different addresses, 3 different individuals. That potentially would lead the federal agents to 3 different homes.
The name and number of patients' information pulled is still unknown. Because the investigation is ongoing, officials allude to the fact that there's a possibility more records could be subpoenaed.
The federal government is not my doctor.
The legal gray area between state law and federal law, raising concerns again for more than 57,000 Oregon medical marijuana patients. In Medford, Jennifer Elliott, NBC 5 News.
Medford Police Chief Tim George has falsely accused Lori of selling medicinal marijuana. This is absurd considering hundreds of legal medical marijuana patients have received free medical marijuana from Lori for many years, and they are willing to testify to that fact in court. Then there is this charge of conspiracy. In order to prove a conspiracy, you have to prove Lori had criminal intent. The only thing that Lori intended to do was help ease the pain and suffering of sick people. What about being within 1,000 feet of a school? In order to prove this, you need to prove that Lori was in a public place. A public place is considered the street, sidewalk, or a park. It includes hallways and lobbies of apartment buildings. Lori for many years has given away legal medicinal marijuana within the Southern Oregon NORML headquarters. These headquarters are not, nor within an apartment building. Also, Medford Police Chief Tim George charged Lori with delivering marijuana. Well, marijuana that is not medicinal is illegal in Oregon. However, Lori only gives away free medicinal marijuana, and medicinal marijuana is legal in Oregon. However, I did discover something very interesting as I read through Oregon's Medicinal Marijuana Act. In Section 475.316, the Act refers to limitations on cardholders' immunity from criminal laws involving marijuana. In other words, legal situations where the medical marijuana card does not protect you. One of these legal situations is explained in Section 475.316(1)(d). Delivers marijuana for consideration to any individual, even if the individual is in possession of a registry identification card. What does this mean? Well, first we need to know what consideration is. Consideration is a legal term that means something of value given by both parties to a contract that induces them to enter into the agreement to exchange mutual performances. This value that is given by both parties does not have to be money. It could be the promise of one person in exchange for the performance of another person. For example, let's say I'm a registered medical marijuana card holder and I have some really good medical marijuana. Let's say I then call my buddy who is also a registered medical marijuana card holder and I say, "Dude, I have some super dank medical marijuana. I promise to go over to your house and smoke you out for free." And let's say my buddy replies, "Hells to the yeah. I'll hella perform the act of smoking that medicinal marijuana that you promised to bring over for free." You need to remember that a promise in exchange for performance equals consideration. And if there is consideration plus delivery, well, that equals a felony. So according to Oregon's Medicinal Marijuana Act, I have just conspired to deliver marijuana, the same charge that Lori Duckworth is facing, only 11 times over. In other words, if I even talk about giving someone who is dying of cancer medicinal marijuana, Tim George and Mike Winters will throw me in jail. The scariest part of all this is made evident when one looks at a scenario involving a patient and a care provider. The medical marijuana care provider makes a promise to grow medicinal marijuana, and the medical marijuana patient performs the act of receiving the medicinal marijuana. This means there is consideration, and the caregiver will be charged with delivering marijuana, which is a felony in Oregon. So how can a medical marijuana patient who cannot perform the physical tasks necessary to grow medicinal marijuana ever receive their medicinal marijuana? In other words, they can't grow it themselves and nobody's allowed to give it to them. Does this sound like a fair law to you? That's not even the most baffling part of this whole sad situation. Check this out.
Organizers from medical marijuana groups in Jackson County gave away free pot to patients today.
With all the recent federal pot raids, organizers say they wanted to give back to 300 patients who were left empty-handed. Newswatch 12's Sharon Coe is live in Medford and explains more on the group's giveaway.
Here at the So Normal office, organizers say it's been busy all day. In just the first 2 hours of just starting the event, they say about 40 patients came in, and of course, more patients came in as the day progressed. Now, Executive Director Lori Duckworth says it was a joint effort with the Greenery and the Hemp and Cannabis Foundation to make today's event happen.
Just for one day, patients who lost their medical marijuana to the recent pot raids got something back.
So today is just really a time of rejoicing and being able to give patients their medications.
It's also been emotional, very emotional.
Organizers say after the pot raids, many patients were left with little options.
Unfortunately, we have had several patients that returned to using pharmaceuticals, and I can tell you that those patients, it's just sad to see the difference.
So for many, today was a celebration.
I've seen a couple of the growers from my site, and to see them, it's a relief. It's a relief, and it's grateful to be able to walk up to them and still say thank you.
So Normal says numerous patients donated their overages for the giveaway.
Because they do not want to violate law, they would like to give that access to patients that have nothing.
Patients donated 72 pounds of marijuana. They gave each patient an ounce and a half of pot.
I see a lot of people walking through the doors that may suffer from this and that are suffering for medical reasons.
As much as this event helped many, organizers are hoping pot raids don't happen again and growers can farm without fear of the feds.
Here on out, we're really focusing on changing that federal law and regaining the state of Oregon citizens' rights as voted on almost 14 years ago.
So Normal says they plan on making more efforts to educate the public and eventually bring a petition to the Oregon ballot. She says the executive director says that the entire cannabis community in Oregon is working towards that. Live in Medford, Sharon Coe, Newswatch 12.
Lori Duckworth publicly gave away 72 pounds of medicinal marijuana. She gave away free medicinal marijuana to 300 patients. This took all day to do. She even called the media ahead of time. Everybody in Medford knew about it. Why didn't Madge arrest her that day for 300 counts of delivering marijuana?
Because in reality, the only thing Lori Duckworth is guilty of is showing human feelings, namely compassion.
Currently, marijuana is classified federally along with heroin and LSD as a Schedule I drug, meaning it has no accepted medical uses. This is where the debate over marijuana becomes, well, debatable to say the least. Some people would argue that cannabis certainly has medicinal use.
There are almost 500 molecules in the cannabis plant. Approximately 100 to 110 of them fall into the cannabinoid category. THC and CBD are two of the 100 cannabinoids.
CBD stands for cannabidiol. Unlike THC, however, CBD is a non-psychoactive component found in the plant. Many doctors and patients are now saying that along with THC, CBD, although less known, is an even more beneficial component of the cannabis plant.
Internally, we have, just like there's THC and CBD in the plant, those are phytocannabinoids. We have cannabinoids in our brain that are called endo, if we're inside in the brain.
Scientists located two cannabinoid receptors in the body. One called the CB1 receptor, which can be found in the brain, and a second one called CB2, which is mainly in the cells of the immune system. These receptors act like a key in a lock, and once activated, they can act like a target for cannabinoids, which once combined with the receptors, can play an important role from everything from pain relief, digestion, vision, and many other functions of the body. There is a wealth of laboratory evidence that cannabis kills cancer cells in a variety of ways. Among these are that cannabinoids prevent the cancer cells from reproducing. Additionally, it also prevents the formation of new blood vessels needed by cancer tumors to grow. As well as, it also prevents cancer from spreading to other organs. That's particularly important in cancer treatment, because experts are able to speed up the death of the cancer cell without touching the healthy cells around it. This is not the case with current cancer treatments, such as radiation and chemotherapy.
And it appears that we have a 2-AG deficiency, just like a lot of people have serotonin, norepinephrine, dopamine, thyroid, all sorts of deficiencies. And you give somebody a little bit of CBD, I mean, very small dose, and all of a sudden the spinning stops. And you can't spin, you can't even get it started. It's amazing.
The spinning that the doctor is referring to is the overthinking, worrying, and other symptoms associated with anxiety, ADD, and other conditions that CBD may treat. That being said, however, this is just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to what CBD is treating and what it will be used for in the future.
So generally, marijuana can be used medically to treat a variety of symptoms. It's used by, MS patients to control muscle spasticity.
For anxiety, I mean, it's virtually 100% effective at 2 to 3 milligrams, once a day.
We're hearing more and more about marijuana's treatment in cancer, in some forms of brain cancer, glioblastoma.
There's a lot of work going on around the world. There's a huge study going on, showed that a 21-day treatment of CBD, and CBD alone kills the cancers. It turns a gene that can be on when the tumor is very aggressive off, and then the tumor goes through cell suicide, which is called apoptosis, and cuts off the blood supply to itself and dies. To me, since it's so safe, if I were able to get it and I had cancer, I'd probably take it. It's hard to believe that ultimately, 100 years from now, chemotherapy and radiation are going to be the end-all treatment for anything.
I have come in contact with hundreds and hundreds of people that marijuana transformed their life.
We're also looking at it, using it for veterans of the last 2 wars with documented PTSD, and I've treated a handful of them already, and they respond dramatically well. There's actually going to be some news coming out of a country, I can't say where, because I was promised, but that they're going to be sending CBD-rich medicine to all of their population because they have a lot of PTSD there, and the prescription use is increasing. So I think we're going to find over the next, handful of years, this is going to become routine.
Aside from the U.S. dabbling with the new CBD cannabis, this undisclosed country mentioned is Israel, whose government is already said to be growing the beneficial strand at Tikkun Olam, Israel's largest and most advanced medical marijuana facility.
Because it's been really hidden, not just hidden because it was historically lost genetically in the plant, or nearly lost, but also because our own federal government patented it in 2003. Obviously, if you patent something and you sell licenses to grow it, you must feel it has some use. And it's a big, 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 big dollar deal. So they want to be in this business, and they're in the business.
The new CBD treatments can be ingested through a spray bottle form.
I'm not a huge promoter of smoking because in medicine, you just waste 90% of it. Goes up, as Professors Cheech and Chong said, in smoke. 90% of the cannabinoids go up in smoke. We're trying a new technique where they'll get 2 spray bottles, one that's almost all CBD and the other that's almost all THC, and they can mix them. Here, you can get 95% of them into the bottle, which makes this a fraction of the cost to medicate.
And as far as the risks are concerned, medical experts are saying that the side effects are minimal.
The only side effect, well, there's 2 potential. One, which most people are thrilled about. Some people do get a little happier and cheerful. So that psychoactivity, it is a side effect, and it needs to be listed that your mood might improve, okay? It cuts your appetite, and particularly appetite for sweets. So there's more people like going on these CBD diets, which I kind of hate to talk about because I don't want it to go to that level, but it works. Just like THC gives you the munchies, CBD gives you the anti-munchies. We have strains now that we're growing that are just being harvested this week that have like a 25-to-1 ratio of CBD to THC. Our current plants have 2-to-1. this was like a genetic miracle that happened. So we'll be able to make tinctures that have as little THC as hemp does. So they'll be kind of the same as hemp tinctures and potentially legal.
To debunk the age-old question, does smoking weed kill brain cells? Well, as far as the CBD is concerned, the results are quite the opposite.
It saves brain cells, and if your brain cells are injured, it helps heal them quicker, and heart cells as well. But dosable cannabis medicine is the future.
Pharmaceutical companies, along with your government and law enforcement, want you, the American people, to believe that what you grow in your own garden is not good enough for your own consumption. We follow the dictates of a food pyramid whose sole purpose has been to capitalize freely from the socialist despotism that the ever-watchful eye from on top has encouraged. People of Oregon, I ask you, how long will you allow this pyramid scheme to go on?